She discovered the betrayal, left her husband and became a powerful woman. Years later, he showed up desperate and did something that shocked everyone. Please leave your like and enjoy the story. The silence in the house was louder than any words could be. Emily Harper, 35, sat at the dining room table, her husband Michael's laptop open before her. The April sunlight streamed through the wide windows of their upscale home in Boulder, Colorado, casting a glow that seemed to mock the storm brewing inside her. Emily hadn't meant to snoop. She wasn't the type to distrust or pry. But her phone had died the night before, and she needed to send an urgent report to her team at the tech startup where she served as project manager. Michael, ever helpful, had suggested she use his laptop. "It's on the desk, babe." "Password's my grandma's name plus the year we got married," he'd said with that smile that always made her feel safe. But now, as she typed Dorothy 2012, Emily's heart tightened. The laptop unlocked. The desktop background, a photo of them on a beach in San Diego, felt like a relic from another life. She opened the browser, but before she could access her email, a notification flashed. An unfamiliar messaging app. The name Sophie appeared, followed by a line that stopped Emily's world. "Missing last night. When do I see you again?" The air grew heavy, as if all the oxygen had been sucked from the room. Hands trembling, Emily clicked the chat. It wasn't just one message, it was years of them. Photos, affectionate texts, plans for meetups at boutique hotels, trips disguised as work conferences. The latest, sent that morning while Michael kissed her goodbye before heading to his office, read, "Booked the cabin in Aspen for our weekend. It's gonna be special." Emily's stomach churned. 10 years of marriage, a decade of unwavering trust, of plans for a future, of nights dreaming of a family that never came. It all crumbled in minutes. She gripped the table, nails digging into the polished wood. Her phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Babe, thinking of you. Dinner tonight at our favorite spot." It was their dating anniversary. The irony hit like a punch. Emily scrolled back through the messages. One from weeks ago caught her eye. "While she thinks I'm in Denver, we'll have the holiday to ourselves." She bolted to the bathroom, her body reacting before her mind could catch up. Kneeling on the cold tile, she retched, tears streaming as memories flooded her. The nights Michael claimed he was swamped at work, the vague texts, the way he'd started locking his phone. The signs were there, but Emily, blinded by love, had refused to see them. After splashing water on her face, she stared at her reflection. The woman looking back felt like a stranger. At 35, Emily thought she had the perfect life, a thriving career, a beautiful home, a marriage everyone envied. Now, she saw only fragility. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Rachel, her best friend since their business school days at CU Boulder. "Lunch today, I'm in town." Emily hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. "Can't, Rach. Something's happened," she replied, her voice shaking even in her thoughts. She needed time. Back at the laptop, Emily started saving everything. Screenshots, emails sent to herself. Years of managing projects had taught her to be thorough, to leave no gaps. She wouldn't let Michael manipulate or deny what was now undeniable. The messages revealed more. Sophie wasn't just a colleague. She was the new intern at the financial consulting firm where Michael worked as CFO. He'd introduced her to Emily at a company barbecue months ago. Sophie, 23, had smiled sweetly, accepting the lemonade Emily offered while secretly sharing a life with her husband. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Michael shared dreams, fears, and plans with Sophie that he hadn't shared with Emily in years. In one message, he wrote, "You get me in a way she never will." Emily closed the laptop. A cold calm settled over her, as if the shock had hardened into resolve. She stood, grabbed the largest suitcase from the closet and started packing. Clothes, documents, the pearl necklace her mother had left her. In the bedroom, she left her wedding ring on the dresser, next to the anniversary card she'd chosen so carefully days before. The sound of the suitcase wheels echoed on the hardwood floor. In the kitchen, she left her keys by the coffee maker, where Michael had stood that morning brewing the coffee they always shared. Was he thinking of Sophie as he poured her cup? Her phone buzzed one last time. "Reserved the kitchen for 8. Wear that red dress I love." Emily stared at the text until the screen dimmed. Then she blocked his number, grabbed the suitcase and walked out. Boulder's sun shone brightly, the neighborhood humming with its usual calm, as if her world hadn't just ended. She got into her car, started the engine and drove. In the rearview mirror, the house shrank until it vanished. Emily didn't know where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay. The life she'd built with Michael was a lie, and she wouldn't live in it anymore. At the first traffic light, tears came, silent but freeing. She thought of the women she inspired at the startup, the talks about overcoming obstacles, about never giving up. She always told them an ending was the start of something new. Now she had to believe it. The light turned green. Emily wiped her face, grabbed her phone, and called Rachel. Her friend answered on the first ring. "Rach, about that lunch, I think I need it, and maybe your couch for a few days." Her voice was steady despite the tears. "Em, what's going on? Where are you?" "I'll tell you everything, but first, promise you won't let me go back, no matter what Michael says, no matter how weak I get." A pause. Then Rachel's voice, strong. "Promise. Tell me where you are, I'm coming." Emily parked at the cafe where she and Michael had their first date 11 years ago. It felt poetic that her new journey would begin there. She sent Rachel the address and leaned back, watching people come and go, each with their own stories. Today her story was changing. Today she was choosing herself. In a few hours, Michael would come home to an empty house. He'd find the ring, the keys, the silent end of their marriage. He'd try to call, explain, beg, but Emily wouldn't be there to listen. She'd be with Rachel, planning her next steps, starting to rebuild her life from scratch. Fear should have consumed her, but beneath the pain, something new was stirring. Hope. Not for Michael to change, but for herself, for the woman she could become now that the illusion had shattered. Her phone lit up with a text from Rachel. "On my way, champ. Hang tough." Emily smiled through her tears. Maybe that's what she was now, a fighter. Not with weapons, but with courage, battling for her dignity, her future, for herself. The afternoon sun stretched shadows across the pavement. In a few hours it would set, taking with it the life Emily knew. But tomorrow it would rise again, and she would rise with it, stronger, wiser, and finally free. The cafe where Emily had parked her car smelled of freshly roasted coffee, mingling with the hum of conversations and the clink of cups. Seated at a corner table, Emily watched the bustle, trying to ground herself in the moment while the past still tugged at her. The weight of the suitcase in her car's trunk, the ring left on the dresser, the house that was no longer hers, it all felt like a dream she hadn't yet woken from. But there, under the soft light of late afternoon, with her phone resting quietly on the table, Emily felt something new blooming in her chest. It wasn't just pain or anger. It was a spark, small but alive, of who she could be without the chains of a marriage that had stifled her without her realizing. Rachel arrived minutes later, her curly hair loose and her eyes filled with concern but resolve, like someone ready to carry a friend through a storm. She sat without a word, just reaching across to squeeze Emily's hand, a gesture that spoke louder than words. "Tell me everything," she said finally, her voice low but steady. Emily took a deep breath, and the words poured out like a dam breaking, each one heavy with shock, betrayal, and a painful clarity. She told Rachel about the messages, about Sophie, about the years of lies Michael had woven with a master's skill. Rachel listened in silence, her eyes glinting with a mix of fury and sorrow. When Emily finished, the cafe was quieter, the sun beginning to set, painting the sky orange. I always thought Michael was slippery, you know. That way he'd charm everyone but never really open up." "I should have said something," Rachel admitted, guilt weighing her voice. Emily shook her head. "No, Rach, I wouldn't have listened. I was so in love with the idea of us I ignored it all, but now I see and I'm not going back." Rachel smiled, a proud smile. "That's the Emily I know, the one who led group projects in college, who got everyone to believe in her crazy ideas. You're not a quitter, so what's the plan?" Emily paused. For the first time in hours, she thought of the future, not the past. "I don't know yet. I need a place to stay, a fresh start. And I need to make sure he doesn't pull me back with empty promises." Rachel slapped the table, resolute. "You're staying with me. The apartment's small, but the pull-out couch is yours as long as you need. As for Michael, leave him to me. If he shows up, he'll have to get through me first. Emily laughed, her first real laugh since the discovery. It was fragile but genuine, like a ray of sun piercing a storm. That night, settled in Rachel's apartment, Emily slept on the pull-out couch, the distant hum of Boulder's traffic lulling her into a restless sleep. Fragmented dreams haunted her. Michael laughing with Sophie, the empty house, the sound of her own voice vowing never to return. But when she woke, the morning light brought new clarity. She was no longer Michael's wife. She was Emily Harper, and she needed to discover what that meant now. The days that followed were a blur of chaos and purpose. Emily threw herself into work, leading meetings at the startup with an almost obsessive drive. Her colleagues noticed the change, the fire in her eyes, the resolve in every decision, but no one asked. She preferred it that way. Still, Michael didn't give up. He bombarded her phone with texts from unknown numbers, emails begging for a chance to explain. Emily blocked each one, but his persistence was like a shadow, always lurking, waiting for a moment of weakness. A week after leaving the house, Emily received an unexpected email. It was from a consulting firm in Seattle, offering a leadership role in a tech innovation project. She'd applied months ago, almost on a whim, never expecting a callback. Now, the offer felt like a beacon in the fog. Seattle was vibrant, dynamic, 200 miles from Boulder, far enough for a true restart, but close enough to stay tethered to Rachel and her old life. Emily scheduled an interview for the following week, her heart torn between fear and excitement. That night, on the tiny balcony of Rachel's apartment, Emily flipped through a notebook where she'd started jotting down ideas. Not just work plans, but dreams she'd shelved during her marriage. Leadership workshops for women, a non-profit for at-risk youth, even a solo trip to the Pacific Northwest, something Michael had always dismissed. Each line was a step away from him, a brick in the foundation of a new Emily. But the past wouldn't stay quiet. 2 days before the interview, Michael showed up at Rachel's building. Emily was heading out for a morning jog when she saw him, leaning against his car, eyes sunken and face hastily shaved. He looked smaller, less commanding, but still carried the charm that had once captivated her. Please, just hear me out," he began, his voice low, almost pleading. Emily stopped, heart racing, not from love but from anger, mixed with a resolve not to yield. "I've got nothing to hear, Michael. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine." He stepped forward, hands outstretched as if begging. "I messed up, babe. It was a weak moment. Sophie, she's nothing. I'll end it, I swear. We can fix this." Emily laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. A moment. It was years, Michael. Years of lies, of meetups, of plans with her while I thought we were building a life. You didn't mess up. You chose day after day to betray me. He tried to speak, but Emily raised a hand, cutting him off. "I've got a lawyer. You'll get the divorce papers soon. And just so you know, I'm leaving. To Seattle, maybe farther. Don't contact me again." She turned, ignoring his calls, and jogged away. Each step on the pavement felt like freedom, as if she was shedding not just Michael, but the version of herself that had believed in him. When she returned, Rachel was waiting with coffee and a look of approval. "You were epic," her friend said, having watched from the window. "Now focus on that interview. This is your shot to shine." The interview in Seattle was a turning point. The firm, a respected name, needed someone with Emily's expertise to lead a digital transformation project with non-profits. During the conversation, Emily surprised herself with her confidence. She spoke about innovation, social impact, and for the first time her vision for empowering women through tech. The interviewers exchanged impressed glances. By the end, they offered her the job on the spot, with a salary that made her blink twice to be sure she'd heard right. Back in Boulder, Emily celebrated with Rachel at a trendy bar in Pearl Street, Boulder's lively downtown. Over glasses of wine and laughter, she tasted freedom. But the night brought an unexpected twist. As she paid the bill, Emily got a text from an unknown number. "Emily, it's Sophie. I need to talk, not about Michael, about me." Emily stared at her phone, heart pounding. Rachel, reading over her shoulder, frowned. "What does she want now?" "I don't know," Emily murmured. "But I think I'm going to find out." She replied, setting a meeting at the same cafe where she'd met Rachel days earlier. It wasn't out of curiosity or spite. It was something bigger, understanding what had brought her here and how she could use this pain to rebuild. That night, as she wrote in her notebook, Emily scribbled, "Today, I said no to the past. Tomorrow, I'll say yes to the future. And someday, I'll teach other women to do the same." The spark in her chest was growing, fueled by every choice she made for herself. The morning was crisp in Boulder, with a breeze that made the trees sway along the sidewalk. Emily arrived at the cafe 10 minutes early, choosing a table by the window where sunlight traced soft patterns on the worn wood. The same place where she and Rachel had met days ago now felt like the stage for a new chapter. Her phone sat on the table, Sophie's message still open. Not about Michael, about me. Emily didn't know what to expect, but she sensed this meeting was more than a confrontation. It was a chance to understand not just the past, but what she wanted to carry forward. As she waited, she ordered a latte, the warm aroma soothing her nerves. She watched people on the street, couples laughing, students with earbuds, an elderly man walking his dog, and thought about how life moved on, oblivious to each person's inner storms. Emily was no longer the woman who'd left her home with a suitcase and a shattered heart. Each day away from Michael made the ground beneath her feel steadier, as if she were rebuilding not just her life, but her very core. Sophie arrived on time, but she wasn't the polished young woman Emily recalled from the company barbecue. Her blonde hair, once perfectly styled, was pulled into a messy bun, and her eyes, hidden behind sunglasses, carried a visible weight. She hesitated upon seeing Emily but approached, sitting with a sigh that seemed to hold the world. "Thanks for coming," Sophie said, her voice soft, almost shy. Emily nodded, posture straight, but not hostile. "You said you needed to talk. I'm here." Sophie removed her sunglasses, revealing deep bags under her eyes. "I don't know where to start. I guess I owe you an apology, but it's more than that." Emily raised an eyebrow, surprised by the vulnerability in her voice. "Apologies don't change what happened, Sophie, but I'm listening. Go ahead." Sophie took a shaky breath, her hands clutching the cup the waiter had just brought. "I broke things off with Michael last week, not because you found out, but because I saw who he really is. And because I saw myself in what he did to you." Emily frowned, intrigued. "What do you mean?" Sophie hesitated, staring at the table. "When I started at the firm, I was just an intern, fresh out of college. Michael was the boss, the guy everyone looked up to. He gave me attention, made me feel special. I know it sounds cliché, but I believed he saw me. He said your marriage was over, that you were distant, all about your career. I wanted to believe him because it was easier than facing what I was doing." Emily felt a pang, not of sadness, but of recognition. She'd fallen for Michael's manipulation too. "He lied to both of us," she said, her voice steady. Sophie nodded, eyes glistening. "But there's more. After you left, he changed, got obsessive, controlling. I started digging. His emails, his phone, and I found others. Before me there were at least 2 other interns. He has a pattern, Emily. He picks young, ambitious women who need validation. He wins them over, makes them depend on him, then moves on when someone new comes along." Emily absorbed the words, each one confirming what she'd begun to suspect. Michael wasn't just a cheater. He was a predator, feeding on trust. "Why tell me now?" she asked, her voice calm but piercing. Sophie pulled an envelope from her bag and placed it on the table. "Because I want to do the right thing, at least once. This has everything I found, emails, texts, even hotel receipts. It's for your lawyer for the divorce, and because I want out of this. I want to be more than the girl who fell for his lies, and I think you, more than anyone, get that." Emily looked at the envelope, then at Sophie's eyes. There was remorse there, but also something else, a yearning for redemption. For the first time, Emily saw Sophie not as the other woman, but as a young person who, like her, had been deceived by a man who knew exactly how to manipulate. "I don't forgive you," Emily said honestly, "but I appreciate this, and I hope you find your way." Sophie nodded, a tear falling. "Me too. And, Emily, congrats on the Seattle job. I heard at the firm. You deserve it." Emily blinked, surprised. "How'd you know?" "Michael mentioned it," angrily. Said you were throwing everything away out of pride, but I think you're doing what he never could. Starting over. Sophie stood, leaving the envelope on the table. Good luck, really. After Sophie left, Emily stayed at the cafe, flipping through the envelope. The evidence was damning. Dates, locations, messages painting Michael as a calculated manipulator. But more than that, the meeting with Sophie planted a seed. Emily realized her pain wasn't unique. It was part of a cycle that needed breaking, not just for her, but for other women who might cross paths with men like Michael. Back at Rachel's apartment, Emily shared the encounter. Rachel, initially skeptical, was impressed by Sophie's courage. You know, Em, this is bigger than you and her. It's about how guys like him get away with it, while women carry the blame. You're starting to change that story. Rachel's words echoed in Emily, fanning the spark she'd felt since leaving the house. That night she researched the Seattle project more. It wasn't just a job, it was a chance to work with non-profits empowering women through tech, teaching coding, entrepreneurship and digital skills. Emily saw not just a career move but a purpose. She started sketching ideas, workshops, mentorships, maybe a platform to connect women transitioning careers. Each idea made her feel more alive, as if she were rediscovering parts of herself her marriage had dimmed. The days before moving to Seattle were hectic. Emily finalized the divorce details with her lawyer, using Sophie's evidence to ensure Michael couldn't contest. He tried contacting her a few more times, but Emily, now stronger, ignored every attempt. She also planned her new life. She rented a cozy apartment in Capitol Hill, Seattle's vibrant, artsy neighborhood, full of coffee shops, street art, and energy. Rachel helped her pack, turning the process into a celebration with pizza and upbeat playlists. "You're taking off, girl," Rachel said, raising a glass of soda. "And I'll be front row, cheering." Emily smiled, but a twinge of fear hit her. Seattle was a fresh start, but also a leap into the unknown. What if she wasn't ready? What if the past dragged her back? But looking at Rachel, her notebook full of dreams, the envelope symbolizing her freedom, Emily knew there was no going back. The day of the move arrived with a clear blue sky and Colorado's trademark warmth. Emily drove to Seattle, the highway flanked by pine trees, the radio playing a lively tune by the Lumineers. Arriving in Capitol Hill, she parked outside the quaint building with a mural-covered facade. The apartment was small but had a balcony overlooking the city's chaotic charm. As she unpacked, Emily felt a new energy. Seattle, with its buzz, was inviting her to be bigger, bolder. That night, she wandered the neighborhood, stopping at a bar where a local indie band played. Sitting alone, she ordered a craft beer and toasted herself. "To new beginnings," she whispered, glass raised to the starry sky. At work, Emily dove in headfirst. The project was challenging, but inspiring. She led a diverse team of coders, educators, and activists, all united by the goal of transforming lives. A colleague, Mia, a 28-year-old developer with an infectious grin, quickly became an ally. "You've got this energy that lifts us up," Mia said over lunch. "Like you were born for this." Emily laughed, but the words stuck. Maybe she was born for this, not just to manage projects, but to inspire, to show it was possible to rise after pain. But it wasn't all smooth. One night, while reviewing reports, Emily got a call from an unknown number. She hesitated but answered. It was Michael. "Em, please, don't hang up. I know I screwed up, but I'm changing. I checked into rehab, I'm getting help. I just want to see you, explain." His voice shook, but Emily felt no pity. She felt anger, not at him, but at herself for almost believing. "Michael, your change is your problem. I'm living my life now. Don't call again." She hung up, heart racing but mind clear. That night she wrote in her notebook, "Today I chose my peace and I'll choose it every day." Weeks later, Emily was invited to speak at a tech and women's empowerment conference. Nervous but determined, she took the stage, sharing her journey, not the betrayal's details, but the strength she found in choosing herself. The audience, mostly women, gave a standing ovation. Afterward, a young woman approached, eyes shining. "Your talk made me want to try again. I left an abusive relationship and thought I was done. Thank you." Emily's throat tightened. In that moment, she knew her story wasn't just hers. It was for every woman needing a push to soar. As she walked back to her apartment, Emily got a text from Mia. "You killed it today, and FYI, a non-profit wants you to lead a national project. Ready to go big?" Emily smiled, Seattle's breeze tousling her hair. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she knew she wasn't afraid. The past was a faint echo. The future, with its endless possibilities, was right in front of her, and she was ready to embrace it. The Seattle sky was gray, heavy clouds promising rain, but inside the small office in Capitol Hill, Emily Harper felt an energy no storm could dampen. It was her first week leading the national project with the nonprofit, an ambitious program called Women in Tech, offering tech training to women in vulnerable situations. The room, adorned with colorful sticky notes and whiteboards brimming with ideas, buzzed with the quiet in the house was louder than any shout. Sarah Bennett, 35, sat at the kitchen table, her husband David's laptop open in front of her. The April light poured through the tall windows of their elegant home in Asheville, North Carolina, its glow almost mocking the chaos rising within her. Sarah hadn't planned to pry. She wasn't one to suspect or dig. But her phone had crashed the previous night, and she needed to send a critical report to her team at the tech startup, where she worked as a project manager. David, always accommodating, had suggested she use his laptop. "It's on the desk, honey. Password's my mum's name plus our wedding year," he'd said with that grin that always made her feel secure. But now, as she typed Margaret 2012, Sarah's chest tightened. The laptop unlocked. The desktop wallpaper, a snapshot of them on a beach in Charleston, felt like a memory from another era. She opened the browser, but before she could log into her email, a notification popped up. An unfamiliar messaging app. The name Lauren flashed, followed by a sentence that froze Sarah's world. "Can't stop thinking about last night. When's next?" The room seemed to lose all air, the weight crushing. Hands shaking, Sarah clicked the conversation. It wasn't a single message. It was years' worth. Photos, tender texts, plans for rendezvous at chic hotels, trips masked as business meetings. The most recent, sent that morning as David kissed her goodbye before heading to his office, read, "Reserved a cabin in the Smoky Mountains for our weekend. It'll be unforgettable." Sarah's stomach twisted. 10 years of marriage, a decade of absolute trust, of dreams for a future, of evenings planning a family that never materialized. It all collapsed in moments. She clutched the table, nails pressing into the smooth oak. Her phone vibrated. A text from David. "Sweetheart, missing you. Dinner tonight at our favorite place?" It was their dating anniversary. The irony stung like a slap. Sarah scrolled through the messages. One from a month ago stood out. "While she thinks I'm in Raleigh, we'll have the weekend to ourselves." She rushed to the bathroom, her body moving faster than her thoughts. Kneeling on the cool tile, she heaved, tears falling as memories overwhelmed her. The nights David said he was buried in work, the evasive texts, the way he'd begun locking his phone. The clues were there, but Sarah, wrapped in love, had refused to notice. After rinsing her face, she stared into the mirror. The woman staring back was a stranger. At 35, Sarah thought she had it all. A rising career, a charming home, a marriage others envied. Now, she saw only vulnerability. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Jessica, her closest friend since their MBA days at UNC. "Lunch today? I'm in Asheville." Sarah paused, fingers hovering over the screen. "Not today, Jess. Something's up," she replied, her voice trembling even in her mind. She needed space. Back at the laptop, Sarah began saving everything. Screenshots, emails forwarded to herself. Years of managing projects had made her meticulous, leaving no room for error. She wouldn't let David twist or deny what was now undeniable. The messages revealed more. Lauren wasn't just a co-worker. She was the new intern at the investment firm, where David was a senior executive. He'd introduced her to Sarah at a company picnic months earlier. Lauren, 23, had smiled warmly, accepting the iced tea Sarah offered, while secretly entwining her life with Sarah's husband. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional. David shared hopes, fears, and plans with Lauren that he hadn't confided in Sarah for years. In one message he wrote, "You understand me like she never could." Sarah shut the laptop. A cold resolve settled in, as if the shock had crystallized into determination. She stood, grabbed the biggest suitcase from the closet and started packing. Clothes, papers, the silver locket her grandmother had given her. In the bedroom, she left her wedding band on the nightstand, next to the anniversary card she'd picked out with care days before. The suitcase's wheels clattered on the hardwood floor. In the kitchen, she left her keys by the espresso machine, where David had stood that morning making the coffee they always shared. Was he thinking of Lauren as he poured her mug? Her phone vibrated once more. Booked the Biltmore Inn for 8. Wear that blue dress I love. Sarah stared at the text until the screen darkened. Then she blocked his number, took the suitcase and walked out. Asheville's sun blazed, the neighborhood bustling with its usual charm, as if her life hadn't just shattered. She got into her car, turned the key, and drove. In the rear view, the house faded until it was gone. Sarah didn't know where she was headed, but she knew she couldn't stay. The life she'd built with David was a facade, and she wouldn't live in it any longer. At the first stoplight, tears came, quiet but liberating. She thought of the women she motivated at the startup, the talks about conquering challenges, about never surrendering. She always told them an end was a new beginning. Now, she had to trust that. The light turned green. Sarah wiped her eyes, grabbed her phone and called Jessica. Her friend answered instantly. "Jess, about that lunch. I think I need it. And maybe your guest room for a bit." Her voice held steady despite the tears. "Sarah, what's happening? Where are you? I'll explain everything, but first, promise you won't let me go back, no matter what David says, no matter how much I waver." A pause. Then Jessica's voice, firm. "Promise. Tell me where you are. I'm on my way." Sarah parked at the cafe where she and David had their first date 11 years ago. It felt fitting that her new path would start there. She sent Jessica the address and leaned back, watching people enter and exit, each carrying their own stories. Today her story was shifting. Today she chose herself. In a few hours David would return to an empty house. He'd find the ring, the keys, the silent end of their marriage. He'd try to call, to justify, to plead. But Sarah wouldn't be there to hear it. She'd be with Jessica, plotting her next moves, beginning to rebuild her life from nothing. Fear should have overwhelmed her, but beneath the pain, something new stirred. Hope. Not for David to change, but for herself, for the woman she could become now that the illusion was gone. Her phone glowed with a text from Jessica. "Coming, warrior, hold strong." Sarah smiled through her tears. Maybe that's what she was now, a warrior. Not with swords, but with courage, fighting for her dignity, her future, for herself. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the street. In a few hours it would set, taking with it the life Sarah knew. But tomorrow it would rise again, and she would rise with it, stronger, wiser, and finally free. The cafe where Sarah had parked her car smelled of fresh baked scones, blending with the murmur of voices and the clatter of plates. Sitting at a corner table, Sarah watched the activity, trying to anchor herself in the present while the past still pulled her back. The weight of the suitcase in her car's trunk, the ring left on the nightstand, the house that was no longer hers. It felt like a nightmare she hadn't woken from. But there, under the gentle light of late afternoon, with her phone resting silently on the table, Sarah felt something new growing inside her. It wasn't just hurt or rage. It was a flicker, faint but vibrant, of who she could be without the shackles of a marriage that had quietly choked her. Jessica arrived soon after, her wavy hair loose and her eyes filled with worry but strength, like someone ready to carry a friend through a crisis. She sat without speaking, simply reaching over to grip Sarah's hand, a gesture that said more than words could. "Spill it all," she said at last, her voice soft but solid. Sarah took a deep breath, and the words rushed out like a river breaking free, each one heavy with shock, betrayal, and a raw clarity. She told Jessica about the messages, about Lauren, about the years of deceit David had crafted with expert precision. Jessica listened quietly, her eyes flashing with a mix of anger and grief. When Sarah finished, the cafe was calmer, the sun starting to dip, tinting the sky pink. "Sarah, I always thought David was too smooth, you know? That way he'd win everyone over but never really let you in. I should have spoken up," Jessica confessed, guilt lacing her voice. Sarah shook her head. No, Jess, I wouldn't have heard you. I was so caught up in the dream of us I ignored everything. But now I see, and I'm not going back. Jessica smiled, a smile of pride. That's the Sarah I know. The one who ran our group projects in grad school, who made everyone believe in her wild plans. You don't give up. So what's next? Sarah hesitated. For the first time in hours, she looked forward, not back. I'm not sure yet. I need a place to crash, a new start. And I need to make sure he doesn't drag me back with empty words. Jessica tapped the table, decisive. You're staying with me. The guest room's small, but it's yours as long as you need. As for David, he's got me to deal with if he tries anything. Sarah laughed, her first true laugh since the discovery. It was delicate but real, like sunlight breaking through clouds. That night, settled in Jessica's guest room, Sarah slept on a borrowed bed, the faint sound of Asheville's nightlife easing her into a fitful sleep. Broken dreams chased her, David smiling with Lauren, the empty house, her own voice swearing never to return. But when she woke, the morning light brought fresh resolve. She was no longer David's wife. She was Sarah Bennett, and she needed to figure out what that meant now. The days that followed were a whirlwind of turmoil and focus. Sarah threw herself into work, leading meetings at the startup with an almost relentless energy. Her colleagues noticed the shift, the spark in her eyes, the firmness in every choice, but no one probed. She preferred it that way. Still, David didn't relent. He flooded her phone with texts from unknown numbers, emails pleading for a chance to explain. Sarah blocked each one, but his persistence was like a shadow, always there, waiting for her to falter. A week after leaving the house, Sarah got an unexpected email. It was from a consulting firm in Austin, Texas, offering a leadership role in a digital innovation project. She'd applied months earlier, almost as a lark, never expecting a response. Now the offer felt like a lifeline in the fog. Austin was lively, creative, 1,000 miles from Asheville, far enough for a real reset, but close enough to stay connected to Jessica and her old life. Sarah booked an interview for the next week, her heart caught between fear and anticipation. That night, on the small porch of Jessica's house, Sarah leafed through a journal where she'd begun scribbling ideas. Not just work plans, but dreams she'd buried during her marriage. Mentorship programs for women, a charity for single mothers, even a solo trip to the Texas Hill Country, something David had always scoffed at. Each word was a step away from him, a stone in the foundation of a new Sarah. But the past wouldn't stay silent. 2 days before the interview, David appeared at Jessica's house. Sarah was heading out for a morning walk when she saw him, leaning against his SUV, eyes tired and face unshaven. He looked diminished, less imposing, but still carried the charisma that had once drawn her in. "Sarah, please, just listen," he started, his voice low, almost desperate. Sarah stopped, heart pounding, not from love, but from fury, mixed with a determination not to cave. "There's nothing to hear, David. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine." He stepped closer, hands raised as if pleading. "I screwed up, honey. It was a mistake. Lauren, she means nothing. I'll end it, I promise. We can fix this." Sarah laughed, a harsh, biting sound. "A mistake? It was years, David. Years of lies, of secret trips, of plans with her while I thought we had a life together. You didn't slip. You chose every single day to betray me." He tried to respond, but Sarah raised a hand, silencing him. "I've hired a lawyer. You'll get the divorce papers soon. And just so you know, I'm leaving. To Austin, maybe beyond. Don't reach out again." She turned, ignoring his calls, and walked away. Each step on the sidewalk felt like liberation, as if she were shedding not just David, but the version of herself that had trusted him. When she returned, Jessica was waiting with tea and a nod of approval. "You were incredible," her friend said, having seen it all from the window. "Now focus on that interview. This is your moment to soar." The interview in Austin was a game changer. The firm, a well-known name, needed someone with Sarah's skills to lead a digital transformation project with local nonprofits. During the discussion, Sarah surprised herself with her poise. She spoke about innovation, community impact, and, for the first time, her vision for empowering women through technology. The interviewers exchanged impressed looks. By the end, they offered her the job on the spot, with a salary that made her double-check she'd heard correctly. Back in Asheville, Sarah celebrated with Jessica at a cozy bar in the River Arts District, Asheville's vibrant creative hub. Over craft beers and laughter, she felt the taste of freedom. But the night brought a surprise. As she settled the tab, Sarah received a text from an unknown number. "Sarah, it's Lauren. I need to talk. Not about David, about me." Sarah stared at her phone, heart racing. Jessica, peeking over her shoulder, frowned. "What does she want now?" "I don't know," Sarah murmured, "but I think I'll find out." She replied, arranging a meeting at the same cafe where she'd met Jessica days before. It wasn't about curiosity or resentment. It was about something larger, understanding what had led her here and how she could use this pain to rebuild. That night, as she wrote in her journal, Sarah penned, "Today I close the door on the past. Tomorrow I'll open one to the future, and one day I'll show other women how to do the same." The flicker in her chest was growing, fed by every choice she made for herself. The morning was cool in Asheville, with a breeze that rustled the leaves along the street. Sarah arrived at the cafe 10 minutes early, picking a table near the window where sunlight danced on the weathered wood. The same spot where she and Jessica had met days ago now felt like the setting for a new act in her life. Her phone lay on the table, Lauren's message still open. "Not about David, about me." Sarah wasn't sure what to expect, but she felt this meeting was more than a showdown. It was a chance to grasp not just the past, but what she wanted to carry into the future. As she waited, she ordered a chai latte, its spicy warmth calming her nerves. She watched people outside, couples chatting, artists with sketchbooks, an older woman walking her dog, and thought about how life flowed on, indifferent to each person's inner battles. Sarah was no longer the woman who'd fled her home with a suitcase and a broken heart. Each day away from David made her footing feel surer, as if she were reconstructing not just her life, but her essence. Lauren arrived on time, but she wasn't the poised young woman Sarah remembered from the company picnic. Her dark hair, once sleekly styled, was tied in a loose ponytail, and her eyes, shadowed by sunglasses, carried a heavy burden. She paused upon seeing Sarah, but approached, sitting with a sigh that seemed to hold a lifetime. "Thanks for meeting me," Lauren said, her voice quiet, almost timid. Sarah nodded, sitting tall but not hostile. "You said you needed to talk. I'm here." Lauren slipped off her sunglasses, revealing deep circles under her eyes. "I don't know how to start. I guess I owe you an apology, but it's more than that." Sarah raised an eyebrow, surprised by the rawness in her voice. "Apologies don't erase what happened, Lauren, but I'm listening. Speak." Lauren took a shaky breath, her hands gripping the mug the barista had just delivered. "I ended things with David last week, not because you found out, but because I saw who he really is, and because I saw myself in what he did to you." Sarah frowned, curious. "What do you mean?" Lauren hesitated, eyes fixed on the table. "When I started at the firm, I was just an intern, barely out of college. David was the big shot, the guy everyone admired. He gave me attention, made me feel important. I know it sounds trite, but I believed he cared about me. He said your marriage was dead, that you were all about work, distant. I chose to believe him because it was easier than facing what I was part of." Sarah felt a twinge, not of sorrow, but of recognition. She'd been swayed by David's manipulations too. "He deceived us both," she said, her voice even. Lauren nodded, eyes welling. "But there's more. After you left, he changed. Got possessive, controlling. I started snooping his emails, his phone, and I found others. Before me, at least 2 other interns. He has a playbook, Sarah. He targets young, driven women who need affirmation. He wins them over, makes them rely on him, then drops them when someone new appears." Sarah absorbed the words, each one confirming her growing suspicions. David wasn't just unfaithful, he was a predator, thriving on trust. "Why come to me now?" she asked, her voice calm but sharp. Lauren pulled an envelope from her bag and set it on the table. "Because I want to do what's right, at least once. This has everything I found, emails, messages, even hotel receipts. It's for your lawyer for the divorce, and because I want to break free of this. I want to be more than the girl who fell for his tricks. And I think you, more than anyone, understand that." Sarah glanced at the envelope, then at Lauren's eyes. There was regret there, but also something else, a hunger for redemption. For the first time, Sarah saw Lauren not as the other woman, but as a young person who, like her, had been misled by a man skilled in manipulation. "I don't forgive you," Sarah said truthfully. "But I'm grateful for this, and I hope you find your path." Lauren nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Me too. And Sarah, congrats on the Austin job. I heard at the firm. You've earned it." Sarah blinked, caught off guard. "How did you know?" "David mentioned it bitterly, said you were throwing it all away out of spite. But I think you're doing what he never could, starting fresh." Lauren stood, leaving the envelope behind. "Good luck." "Truly." After Lauren left, Sarah lingered at the cafe, sifting through the envelope. The evidence was ironclad. Dates, places, messages portraying David as a cold strategist. But more than that, the meeting with Lauren sparked something. Sarah realized her pain wasn't solitary. It was part of a pattern that needed to be broken, not just for her, but for other women who might encounter men like David. Back at Jessica's house, Sarah recounted the meeting. Jessica, initially wary, was struck by Lauren's bravery. "You know, Sarah, this is bigger than you and her. It's about how guys like him skate by while women bear the shame. You're starting to rewrite that story." Jessica's words resonated, fueling the flicker Sarah had felt since leaving the house. That night, she dug deeper into the Austin project. It wasn't just a job. It was a chance to work with nonprofits empowering women through tech, teaching coding, business skills, and digital literacy. Sarah saw not just a career shift, but a calling. She began sketching ideas, workshops, mentorship programs, perhaps a platform to connect women reinventing their careers. Each idea made her feel more alive, as if she were rediscovering parts of herself her marriage had dimmed. The days before moving to Austin were intense. Sarah finalized the divorce details with her lawyer, using Lauren's evidence to ensure David couldn't fight back. He tried reaching out a few more times, but Sarah, now more resilient, ignored every attempt. She also planned her new life. She rented a bright loft in Austin's South Congress neighborhood, a lively area full of music, food trucks, and creativity. Jessica helped her pack, turning the process into a party with tacos and upbeat playlists. "You're launching, girl," Jessica said, raising a glass of iced tea, "and I'll be cheering loudest." Sarah smiled, but a pang of fear hit her. Austin was a new chapter, but also a plunge into the unknown. What if she wasn't ready? What if the past pulled her back? But looking at Jessica, her journal full of dreams, the envelope symbolizing her liberation, Sarah knew there was no turning back. The day of the move arrived with a clear sky and North Carolina's spring warmth. Sarah drove to Austin, the highway lined with dogwood trees, the radio playing a soulful tune by Leon Bridges. Arriving in South Congress, she parked outside the modern loft with a mural-painted exterior. The space was compact, but had a balcony overlooking the city's eclectic energy. As she unpacked, Sarah felt a new vitality. Austin, with its vibrancy, was calling her to be bolder, bigger. That night, she explored the neighborhood, stopping at a bar where a local band played folk rock. Sitting alone, she ordered a margarita and toasted herself. "To starting over," she whispered, glass raised to the starry sky. At work, Sarah dove in with zeal. The project was demanding but uplifting. She led a varied team of developers, teachers, and advocates, all united by the goal of transforming lives. A colleague, Zoe, a 28-year-old coder with a warm smile, quickly became a confidant. "You've got this vibe that pulls us up," Zoe said over coffee. "Like this is your calling." Sarah laughed, but the words lingered. Maybe it was her calling, not just to lead projects, but to inspire, to show that rising after pain was possible. But it wasn't all easy. One night, while reviewing data, Sarah got a call from an unknown number. She hesitated, but answered. It was David. "Sarah, please don't hang up. I know I messed up, but I'm trying to change. I'm in therapy getting help. I just want to talk, to explain." His voice quavered, but Sarah felt no sympathy. She felt anger, not at him, but at herself for nearly believing. David, your change is your issue. I'm living my life now. Don't call again. She hung up, heart racing but mind clear. That night she wrote in her journal, "Today I chose my peace, and I'll choose it daily." Weeks later, Sarah was invited to speak at a tech and women's empowerment summit. Nervous but resolute, she took the stage, sharing her journey. Not the betrayal specifics, but the strength she found in choosing herself. The audience, mostly women, gave a standing ovation. Afterward, a young woman approached, eyes bright. "Your speech made me want to keep going. I left a toxic relationship and thought I was finished." "Thank you." Sarah's throat tightened. In that moment, she knew her story wasn't just hers. It was for every woman needing a nudge to fly. As she walked back to her loft, Sarah got a text from Zoe. "You crushed it. Also, a non-profit wants you to lead a national project. Ready to go huge?" Sarah smiled, Austin's breeze ruffling her hair. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but she knew she wasn't scared. The past was a distant whisper. The future, with its boundless potential, was right there, and she was ready to seize it. The Austin sky was overcast, thick clouds hinting at rain, but inside the small office in South Congress, Sarah Bennett felt an energy no storm could dim. It was her first week leading the national project with the non-profit, a bold initiative called Women in Code, providing tech training to women in tough circumstances. The room, decorated with vibrant sticky notes and whiteboards packed with ideas, hummed with her team's enthusiasm. A mix of programmers, counselors, and activists, all driven by a shared mission, to change lives through skills. At 35, Sarah had never felt so in tune with a purpose. Every email sent, every meeting chaired, every idea jotted in her journal felt like a step towards something monumental, not just for her, but for the women the project would touch. Yet, the challenge's scope also stirred doubt. Could she steer something so vast? Would the past, still lurking in David's occasional messages, derail her? Sarah threw herself into work with fierce commitment, but she wasn't alone. Zoe, the coder who'd become her ally, was a constant spark. Over a coffee break, Zoe, with her easy grin and neon green sneakers, shared her story. "I grew up in a rough part of Houston, Sarah. My dad was a mechanic, and I thought tech was for elites. Then a non-profit gave me a coding camp scholarship. It changed my life. That's why I'm all in on this." Zoe's words hit home, reigniting Sarah's drive. She wasn't just running a program, she was building pathways for women to cross divides she'd faced herself. That afternoon, Sarah pitched the project's initial plan to funders, a group of tech firms and social foundations. Dressed in an emerald blazer and a confidence she was still mastering, she spoke passionately about how the program could reshape lives, citing employment stats and real stories like Zoe's. When she finished, the room's silence broke into applause. One funder, a woman in her 50s with keen eyes, approached. "Sarah, you've got a vision. We want to triple the budget, but only if you lead an expansion to other cities." Sarah's heart raced. It was a huge opportunity, but also a daunting task. "I'll think it over carefully," she said, her professional smile hiding inner turbulence. Back at her loft, Sarah opened a bottle of rosé and sat on the balcony, the faint strum of a guitar drifting from a nearby bar. Her journal, now nearly full, lay in her lap. She wrote, "Today they offered me the stars, but am I worthy of holding them?" The doubt echoed her past, years of believing she had to be flawless to matter. But as the wine warmed her, Sarah remembered the young woman who'd approached her after the summit. Her story wasn't just hers, it was a light for others. Closing the journal, she decided to take the challenge, not for ego, but because saying yes meant rejecting the fear David had instilled. In the days that followed, Sarah dove into the expansion. She traveled to Nashville and Denver, meeting local communities and hearing stories of women who, like her, had endured loss but sought renewal. In Nashville, she met Tanya, a single mum of 29 who'd learned coding to provide for her kids. "I want my boys to know we can be anything," Tanya said, her eyes shining with a fire Sarah recognized as her own. These women weren't just program participants, they were reflections, showing Sarah how far she'd come. But the past didn't stay quiet. One night, while reviewing reports in a Denver hotel, Sarah got an email from David. Subject: please read this. Against her instincts, she opened it. Sarah, I know I don't deserve your attention, but I'm lost. I lost you, my career, my respect. I'm in a recovery program trying to be better. I just want to apologize, truly. The tone was different, less cunning, more broken. For a moment, Sarah felt a flicker of pity, but it quickly gave way to clarity. David was no longer her concern. She replied, brief and firm, I hope you find your way, but it's not my path anymore. Don't contact me again. She sent it, blocked the email, and felt an old weight lift. That night, she dreamed of a bridge, long and strong, spanning a river's banks. Waking, she knew she was its architect, not just for herself, but for countless others. Back in Austin, Sarah began attracting notice. Women in code gained buzz on tech sites, and she was invited to a podcast on social impact. In the studio, headphones on and mic close, Sarah spoke with a sincerity that captivated listeners. I was once defined by betrayal, by loss, but I chose to redefine myself by what I create, by the women I help lift. It's not about forgetting pain, it's about making it something greater. After the recording, the host, Lucas, a 38-year-old journalist with a gentle smile and sharp eyes, invited her for coffee. Your story's too big for one episode, he said, his tone mixing admiration with something deeper. Sarah accepted, surprised by the ease she felt saying yes. The coffee, at a quirky cafe on East 6th Street, was relaxed but significant. Lucas was different from David, open, authentic, a true listener. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was the first time in months Sarah allowed herself to imagine a future with space for new bonds. As the project grew, Sarah faced obstacles. Some companies questioned the program's scalability, and one non-profit partner resisted the women-only focus, calling it restrictive. Sarah stood firm. In a heated meeting, she presented data and stories, showing how empowering women uplifted entire communities. It's not just about coding, she said, voice steady. It's about giving these women the tools to rewrite their lives. Her conviction quieted skeptics, and the project gained more backing. Outside work, Sarah built a new rhythm. She attended songwriter nights in South Congress, where musicians shared raw stories, and signed up for a creative writing workshop, something she'd always wanted but David had dismissed. Writing became a release, a way to process pain and turn it into art. In one session, she shared a piece about her journey, and the instructor, a published poet, urged her to expand it into a book. You have a voice the world needs, she said. Sarah laughed, doubtful, but the seed was planted. One day, while wandering Austin's Zilker Park, alive with joggers and food trucks, Sarah got a call from Zoe. Sarah, big news. An international foundation wants to fund a southern expansion, but they want to meet you in person. It's in Atlanta next week. Sarah paused, heart pounding. The South. It was a leap she hadn't foreseen. I need to think, she replied, but she already knew her answer. That night, she and Lucas met again, this time at a barbecue joint. Over brisket and laughter, Sarah shared the news. You're building something that's changing lives, Sarah, Lucas said, eyes gleaming. And the best part? You do it being so... you. Sarah blushed, but felt something new. The confidence to be enough, just as she was. As she prepared for Atlanta, Sarah got unexpected news. David's firm had launched an internal probe after harassment complaints, partly based on Lauren's anonymous evidence. David had been fired and faced lawsuits. Sarah felt no glee, just quiet justice. He was facing the consequences, while she was creating something enduring. The day before the trip, Sarah hosted a community event in Austin, where program participants showcased their first apps. Seeing those women from such varied backgrounds shine on stage brought Sarah to tears. Tanya from Nashville was there, presenting an app to connect single mums to resources. You showed me I could, Sarah, Tanya said, hugging her. In that moment, Sarah knew the project was bigger than her pain. It was a legacy. As she boarded the flight to Atlanta, Sarah looked out the plane window, Austin shrinking below. She was no longer the woman who'd fled Asheville with a suitcase and a shattered heart. She was Sarah Bennett, builder of bridges, carrier of a mission that crossed borders. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, that didn't frighten her. She was ready to write the next chapter, not just for herself, but for all the women who, like her, chose to soar. The plane cut through the night sky, Austin's lights fading as Sarah Bennett gazed out the window, her reflection merging with the dark clouds. The trip to Atlanta was more than a meeting with the International Foundation. It was a milestone, a testament to how far she had come since that afternoon in Asheville, when her life crumbled like sand. At 35, Sarah was no longer the woman burdened by a betrayed marriage. She was a leader, a visionary, a weaver of paths connecting women to futures they barely dared dream. The journal in her lap, nearly full, held notes for her presentation. Data, stories, the vision of expanding women in code across the South. But among the figures was a handwritten line, almost a creed. My pain led me here. My strength will carry me beyond. As the plane descended, Atlanta's lights glimmered like a vow, and Sarah felt a thrill, not of fear, but of expectation. The hotel where Sarah stayed was modern, yet cozy, with a view of Centennial Olympic Park that made her pause, taking in the city's vibrancy. She spent the first night polishing her presentation, but also writing in her journal, now more a diary than a mere idea pad. She wrote about Tanya, the single mom from Nashville, about Zoe, about the women she'd met on her travels. She wrote about herself, about the Sarah who months ago thought her story would end in tears, but now saw an infinite horizon. The meeting with the foundation, set for the next day, was with global investors led by a Georgian named Olivia Carter, known for funding transformative social projects. Sarah knew she had to impress, not just with stats, but with the project's heart. She slept with the journal beside her, dreaming of a web of women, hands linked, spanning regions. Morning in Atlanta dawned bright, a warm breeze carrying the scent of fresh peaches from a nearby market. Sarah wore a coral suit, a color Jessica swore brought luck, and walked to the foundation's office, a sleek building with windows reflecting the skyline. Olivia Carter greeted her with a warm handshake and a smile blending curiosity and respect. I've heard a lot about you, Sarah. Your work's inspiring people in Austin. Let's see if it can inspire the South. The meeting room was expansive, a long table filled with executives from various countries. Sarah took a deep breath and began. Her presentation wasn't just about women in code, it was about the power of renewal. She spoke of Tanya, who'd built an app for single moms, of Zoe, who'd risen from a tough upbringing, and for the first time of herself, not naming David, but acknowledging the pain that reshaped her. This project isn't just about tech. It's about giving women the chance to rewrite their stories, to turn pain into strength like I did. When she finished, the room's silence was profound. Olivia stood, clapping, and the others followed. Sarah, you're not asking for funding. You're calling us to a movement. We're all in. The meeting extended into lunch at a restaurant overlooking the Chattahoochee River, where Olivia shared her story. I was a banker, but I left it all to start this foundation. Lost a partner, some friends, but found a purpose. I see that same fire in you. Olivia's words struck Sarah deeply, as if she were seeing a future version of herself. The funding was approved, with a budget to bring the project to Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama over the next 2 years. But Olivia had more. I want you to lead the Southern expansion, Sarah, not as a manager, but as executive director. It's a big step, but I believe in you. Sarah was speechless. It was beyond what she'd envisioned, a challenge that would mean leaving Austin, traveling constantly, building something on a grand scale. Can I answer in a week? She asked, needing time to reflect. Olivia smiled. Of course, but I know you already have the answer. Back at the hotel, Sarah wandered Atlanta's streets, the sound of jazz spilling from a nearby club. She stopped at a small bookstore, buying a new journal, sensing the old one was nearing its end, like a chapter of her life. Flipping through the blank pages, she got a text from Lucas. How's it going, nailing it as always? Sarah smiled, typing back. Nailing it and nervous. Catch you up over coffee when I'm back. Lucas had become a steady presence, not a weight, but a soft push urging her to fly. They'd met up more, always for light yet meaningful talks about dreams, fears, and living truthfully. Sarah wasn't ready to call it love, but she felt something new, The possibility of trust again, not in someone to define her, but to share her path. The trip, though, brought an unexpected twist. On the second night, dining alone at a restaurant in Midtown, Sarah saw a familiar figure enter. It was Lauren. The shock was like a jolt. Lauren, now with shorter hair and a lighter gaze, hesitated but approached. "Sarah, I can't believe I ran into you here." Sarah, after a tense moment, invited her to sit. "What are you doing in Atlanta?" she asked, voice neutral but curious. Lauren explained she'd landed a job at a tech startup in the city, a fresh start after leaving David's firm. "I came to get out of Asheville, to rebuild, and to tell you something in person." Sarah raised an eyebrow, braced for anything. Lauren took a deep breath. "I contacted the other women David manipulated. 2 of them. I shared everything, gave them the evidence. They're suing the company for negligence since the bosses knew about his behavior and did nothing. I know it doesn't undo my part, but I wanted to do something right." Sarah absorbed the words, impressed by Lauren's courage. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her voice softening. "But I'm glad you did. Not for me, but for them." Lauren smiled, relieved. "And there's more. I'm developing an app, inspired by your project. It connects women who've faced workplace harassment to legal and counseling resources. If you're open, I can share it with you." Sarah, for the first time, saw Lauren as a partner, not a foe. "Send it to me. Maybe we can work together." The encounter with Lauren was a turning point. Sarah realized her journey wasn't just about overcoming David, but about dismantling the systems that let men like him flourish. Back in Austin, she accepted Olivia's offer, becoming executive director of the Southern expansion. The team celebrated with a rooftop party at the office, Sarah toasting with lemonade and laughing like she hadn't in years. But the work was demanding. She spent weeks traveling, training teams, meeting new participants. In Birmingham, she met a young woman named Keisha, who'd created an educational app for kids after escaping an abusive relationship. "For you made me believe I could be more," Keisha said, handing Sarah a drawing of a butterfly. Sarah tucked it into her journal, a reminder that every woman she helped was a triumph over the past. As the project grew, Sarah kept writing. Her piece, encouraged by her writing instructor, was becoming a book, blending memoir and reflections on resilience. One quiet night, she read a passage to Lucas, who listened with tears in his eyes. "Sarah, this isn't just a book. It's a flame that'll ignite others." His words pushed her to send the manuscript to a publisher, who responded eagerly, requesting a meeting. Publishing her story was intimidating but empowering. Sarah didn't want to be defined by betrayal, but she was ready to use it as a megaphone for other women. Not everything was a victory. On a trip to Tennessee, Sarah faced pushback from a local partner questioning the project's relevance in small towns. Drained, she nearly compromised, but thought of Tanya, Keisha, and all the women relying on her. In a crucial meeting, she pitched an adapted plan with in-person and online courses, winning the support needed. Back in Austin, her lawyer called. The divorce was finalized, and David, now jobless and facing lawsuits, hadn't contested. Sarah felt profound relief, as if the last tie to the past had snapped. That night, she and Lucas walked along Lady Bird Lake, the city's lights reflecting on the water. "Ever think about how much your life's changed in so little time?" he asked. Sarah smiled. "Every day. And the craziest part? I wouldn't change a thing. Every hurt brought me here." Prepping for her next trip, Sarah got a message from Lauren with the app prototype. It was promising, and Sarah scheduled a meeting to discuss a partnership. Women in Code was becoming more than she'd dreamed, a network of women uplifting each other, breaking cycles of pain, building futures. Sarah looked at her journal, nearing its final chapter, and wrote, "Today, I'm more than my story. I'm the start of many others." Atlanta had been the beginning. What came next was grander, braver, and Sarah was ready to lead, not just with her mind, but her heart. The morning in Austin dawned clear, the kind of day that felt crafted for new beginnings. Sarah Bennett, now 36, was in the Women in Code office in South Congress, surrounded by stacks of reports, coffee cups, and her team's lively chatter. The project, once a humble vision, had become a Southern movement, with branches in Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, and soon Louisiana. As executive director, Sarah was no longer just a project leader. She was a voice, a beacon for thousands of women finding their strength through tech. But that morning, as she reviewed plans for the next expansion, Sarah felt more than pride. It was a completeness, as if every shattered piece of her life had found its place, forming a mosaic more radiant than she'd ever imagined. Her new journal sat on her desk, its final pages filled with a guiding principle. My story doesn't end in pain. It begins in transformation. The past months had been a roller coaster. Women in Code had gained international attention, with invitations for Sarah to speak at conferences in Chicago, London, and even Sydney. Her book, Wings of Code, a blend of memoir and reflections on resilience, had been published by a major US publisher and soared up bestseller lists. Each chapter told not just her journey, but the stories of Tanya, Zoe, Keisha, and countless women she'd met, turning her personal pain into a collective cry of triumph. Readers sent messages about how the book inspired them to confront their own traumas. A young woman from Mobile wrote, "Sarah, you showed me betrayal isn't the end. It's the start of who I can be." Every letter, every email reminded her that her mission transcended the past, but success brought challenges. The spotlight revived shadows Sarah thought she'd left behind, including David. Weeks earlier, her lawyer had called. David, now unemployed and facing multiple harassment lawsuits, had tried contacting her through an attorney, requesting a meeting. "He says he wants to make amends, Sarah. But I think it's just panic," the lawyer cautioned. Sarah declined, but the news rattled her. Not from longing, but from realizing David still believed he had sway over her. The response came unexpectedly. At an Austin conference where Sarah presented the project's results, a journalist asked about rumors that her story had sparked complaints against a major investment firm. Sarah, composed, replied, "My story is about turning pain into purpose. If it encouraged other women to speak, I'm honored, but my focus is the future, not the past." The answer, broadcast live, went viral, and days later a report revealed that the complaints against David's firm were fueled by her book, with former employees citing Wings of Code as their courage's catalyst. David, now publicly exposed, became a symbol of what happened when truth surfaced. But the past wouldn't have the final word. Sarah decided to channel her story's impact into something tangible. With her book's royalties and partnerships with Olivia Carter's foundation, she launched the Butterfly Fund, an organization funding education and entrepreneurship for women survivors of violence or manipulation. Named after Keisha's drawing from Birmingham, it symbolized transformation. The fund already supported dozens of projects, including Lauren's app, now connecting thousands of women to legal and mental health resources. Lauren, now a close collaborator, was in the office that morning, discussing the app's integration with Women in Code. "Sarah, I never imagined we'd be here working side by side," Lauren said with a shy smile. Sarah laughed. "Me neither, but life loves to throw curveballs." Her partnership with Lauren was more than professional. It proved even the deepest wounds could forge unexpected bonds. As the project and fund grew, Sarah nurtured her personal life. Lucas, the journalist who'd become her anchor, was now a constant presence, not defining her, but celebrating who she was. They spent evenings cooking together, laughing over botched recipes, or strolling along Austin's Barton Springs, where the city pulsed with life. One night, over homemade enchiladas, Lucas took her hand. "Sarah, you know I admire you, right? Not just for what you do, but for who you are. I'm here, for whatever comes." Sarah's heart warmed. It wasn't a fairy tale promise, but something better, a genuine partnership. "I'm here too, Lucas. Let's see where this goes." It was the first time Sarah let herself love without fear, knowing her worth didn't depend on another. The big moment, though, was looming. Sarah had organized the first Southern Summit for Women in Code, an event in Austin uniting participants, mentors, and partners from 5 states. The venue was the Blanton Museum of Art, a symbolic space of creativity and resilience. The night before, Sarah walked the stage, checking details with Zoe and Tanya, who'd come from Nashville to present her app. The nerves were palpable, but so was the electricity, as if something historic was brewing. That night, alone in her loft, Sarah opened her journal and wrote, "Tomorrow isn't just an event. It's the dawn of a world where no woman has to stay silent." She slept with the balcony door open, the city's hum lulling her dreams. The summit day dawned vibrant, the Blanton alive with colorful banners and live music, from bluegrass to Tejano. Thousands of women, from all ages and backgrounds, filled the space, sharing stories, laughing, crying. Sarah took the stage, heart racing but voice firm. "Today we're not just celebrating what we've built, but vowing what we'll build next. Each of you is a butterfly, turning pain into wings. Together we'll soar higher than we ever imagined." The speech was interrupted by cheers, and Sarah felt tears fall, not from sorrow, but from deep joy. During the event, participants showcased remarkable projects, a mental health app, a microloan platform, even an educational game for kids. Tanya's app for single mums earned a standing ovation. But the most powerful moment came unexpectedly. Mid-event, Sarah was called backstage. There she found a group of women she didn't immediately recognize. One, about 30, stepped forward. "Sarah, I'm Nicole. I'm one of the women who sued David's company. Your book gave us the courage to speak, and we're not alone." She introduced the others, all former employees who, inspired by Wings of Code, had reported harassment and corporate negligence. "We want to thank you, but also ask something. Can we join you on stage? We want to show the truth prevails." Sarah, moved, nodded. Together they returned to the stage, and Nicole spoke with a bravery echoing Sarah's. "We were silenced, but today we speak, and it's because of women like Sarah who turn pain into power." The crowd erupted in applause, and Sarah, embracing Nicole, felt this was her journey's true climax. But the final surprise came at the close. Olivia Carter, who'd flown from Atlanta, announced the Butterfly Fund would receive a $10 million grant from an international coalition, ensuring its future for decades. "Sarah Bennett isn't just a leader. She's the start of a new era for Southern women," Olivia said, handing Sarah a symbolic plaque. Sarah, nearly speechless, thanked her but turned the focus to the women in the crowd. "This isn't mine, it's ours. Every one of you is why we're here." The event ended with a dance performance, participants from different states joining on stage, blending Southern and Latin rhythms in a celebration of unity. Sarah, dancing with Tanya and Zoe, laughed like a child, her heart light. Days later, Sarah learned David had tried selling a sob story interview to the press, claiming to be a victim of a witch hunt. It didn't take. The complaints, amplified by the summit, led to a public scandal for the firm, and David, now alone and discredited, faded from view. Sarah felt no hatred, just pity. He was a relic of the past, while she lived a present rich with purpose and self-love. The next week, Sarah and Lucas took a trip to the Texas Hill Country, a well-earned escape. On a vineyard's patio, under a starry sky, Sarah opened her new journal. "I wrote the end of my story," she said, showing a page describing the summit. Lucas smiled. "That's not an end, Sarah, it's just the beginning." She laughed, leaning in to kiss him, the crickets singing behind. In that moment, Sarah knew she was more than happy. She was whole, not because of Lucas, not because of success, but because of herself. The Butterfly Fund kept growing, supporting thousands of women. Sarah's book was translated into 5 languages, and she began planning a documentary series about the program's participants. But her greatest legacy wasn't measurable. It was the light in the eyes of every woman who, because of her, chose to fly. And somewhere, David, alone, carried the weight of his choices, while Sarah, surrounded by love and purpose, shaped the future. Hey, you who followed Clara's incredible journey so far, how about joining this movement of transformation? If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and give that. Like, that makes all the difference. We want to keep bringing stories of overcoming that inspire, and your energy is what drives us. Tell us, what did you think of the video? On a scale of 0 to 10, what score would you give? Let's build this legacy together, like Clara's butterflies.